Hi, and welcome to another Kira Chat. We're really excited today to offer a closed session, which means normally we open up these conversations to our community and audience. But today we are meeting with Miss Erin Thompson and having a private closed session so we can really focus on the nitty-gritty and details of what she has learned. Miss Erin is now a consultant with blockchain, but has seen it all from the beauty industry to very buttoned up corporate HR teams to the fast paced environment of tech teams. And she is here to bring Kira some insights and learnings about what we could all benefit from our early career. As you know, Kira is a community for first generation and all early career talent. We started because it was very mysterious for us to navigate. We had to learn things that were not said and unsaid through our own journeys. And now we're hoping to invite people and guests like Erin so that we can help demystify this for our younger selves and the younger workers that are out there today. So before we get started, Erin, do you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. Hi, my name is Erin Thompson. I'm currently a consultant at a blockchain tech company, and I've been in the administrative space for the entirety of my career. I started off as an assistant to my sister at a company where I was just kind of like writing content for investors and just letting them know what changes were occurring with stocks that they had owned. And then from there, when I went to college, you do the whole internship thing, and I worked basically for free, as we all start in some cases, at a holdings company that owned a couple of resort wear brands. And then from there, was able to get into beauty and PR post graduation, and then kind of took a detour and went into retail, but in Times Square specifically, so I could get a feel for what it was like to work in such a high stress environment with so many international consumers,
Mhm.
and kind of got to do a little bit of floor design and layout, which is something that you don't really get to experience as an intern, as a lower level intern. So, wanted to grab that skill. And sometimes that's how it is. You just kind of take an opportunity that seems a little bit on the other side just to get a skill that you haven't been able to have the opportunity to do before. And then from there, kind of got into the corporate space, working as a patient service representative for New York University, which was a complete change away from my previous experience in either beauty PR or anything relating to merchandising and advertising, which is what I went to school for. And kind of getting to understand, like, how do you operate when you have a consumer in front of you, not just somebody who's buying a product, but somebody who's specifically coming to you for medical help, and
Mhm.
learning about insurance and things like that. And that was kind of where I really understood how independent services worked and how companies create their own kind of ATS to meet their needs. So NYU worked on a completely custom system. So working and learning all of that, and getting good at figuring out how those systems actually operate, so that helped me in the future when I needed to use all different manner of systems like Greenhouse, Sequoia, um, Good Time, that sort of thing. And from there, I was able to get promoted to become a executive assistant for the dean's floor, which was very high level, working with the people who make decisions for a multi-million, if not billion-dollar school. One of the
Mhm.
biggest in the country. As we know, NYU is huge and has locations everywhere, and that involved, managing schedules for deans um, across multiple time zones and their travel, and dealing with each dean had their own executive assistant. So kind of getting used to collaborating at a high level with multiple people to manage people's lives, essentially. At that level, executive assistants manage their lives pretty much.
Mhm. I
And
love
then
this, Erin, because you're talking about sort of this non-traditional journey. We're sort of fed this idea that at your sophomore or junior year of college, you should know what you're doing. But when we hear you talking, you're saying, no, this was not the way that it actually works.
yeah, it's definitely a non-linear journey. It rarely is. Life is quite
Mhm.
messy, and as you do things, you kind of change what you want. We're human, things appeal to
Mhm.
us more and less. So I decided that the fashion and beauty space was not really what I wanted to do.
Mm.
It did not have the kind of growth projection I was looking for. I didn't want to spend the
Mm.
next 2, 3, 4 years being an assistant of some kind, an
Mhm.
intern, like paid at that rate and working that
Mhm.
hard, and not seeing the kind of skill assessment that I was looking for, because it's not just about the time, it's all about the growth. What is your upward mobility? And that changes.
Mm.
Sometimes a role is not what you expected. Sometimes your direct manager is not giving you the kind of opportunities you would like to experience, and you have to make the moves that are best for you. Um, and I think that has led me to the kind of career that I am very proud of. And, if anyone can hear my journey and understand that there's
Mhm.
no set guidelines or map to this
Mhm.
situation, you will just make one just simply by living your life and doing your best and grabbing whatever opportunity you see in front of you that makes sense. So, I went to NYU, I became an executive assistant. I kind of was just like, oh, I'll do this. I'll go back to school maybe and get my degree, because that was one of the benefits of working at NYU, is that if
Mhm.
you become full-time, you can go back to school at a like highly reduced rate at one of the most recognizable universities in the United States. That's a great deal. Sometimes
Mhm.
an opportunity like that approaches you. And then they were kind of like, do you want to be an executive assistant instead? And I was like, maybe I can make a career out of this. You pivot.
Mhm.
Like this looks stable. I can make some choices. I come in, I do what I'm supposed to do. I learn about what this is like. I interact with these people, um, try and absorb some of their information. What is their working style?
Mhm.
What have they learned in their very long careers? A lot of the people I worked with at that level had careers longer than my lifespan, which was
Mm.
crazy to think about. It was a lot of older people on the dean's floor.
Mhm.
Like on average, we're talking about 30 something year long tenures at the university, and they'd been all over the place.
Mm.
And that is, invaluable information to
Mm.
get from someone. Is like they don't just have secrets, they have the keys,
Ah,
essentially. And I mean that literally. My
yeah.
one of the ladies I worked with very regularly had the keys to the office. She was the first person into the office 3 days. So that's an amazing ability to talk to that person on a daily basis and kind of hear what their journey is like, in the same way that, I'm trying to tell my journey to these students and give them some visibility into what is possible. Because I understand, like, right now is so much rapid change and a lot of growth,
Mhm.
and everything like that. And things just change in ways that are like both positive and negative. I had a whole idea about how I was going to, make a
Mhm.
career at NYU, and then COVID happened and my role was no
Mhm.
longer needed. I was, an office manager, executive assistant, backup essentially. And if there's no office to run, you don't need an office assistant. So kind of backpedaling, taking some time. Everybody was locked inside, so had a lot
Mhm.
of time to think. And then an opportunity came up to work for Cerebral, which was a mental health startup that was rapidly
Mm.
growing during, COVID, because
Mhm.
people were locked inside, and what
Mhm.
what better to do than to take care of your mental health? Very necessary. And that was a life-changing experience. I learned so many things about time management and
Mm.
prioritization, because we had nothing. We had no set system. I went from a company that was like older than my parents,
Mhm.
and had like bylaws that had dust on them. They were so old. And I went to something that had no process. They were like, everything is basically theoretical and you can do whatever you want. And to go from that much structure to none at all was really scary, and also really liberating, because I
Mhm.
became aware that I could do so many things. I could build out process from
Mhm.
scratch. And it's not neat. It's not neat at all. Like, if you've never done a job before and you're coming at it with no prior experience, just, we're just using the previous experience as a guideline.
Mhm.
You have no set expectations for what is going to come up or how it's going to come up, then you just have to start. That's literally just it. That's, and I'm sure people have heard this over and over again, but done is better than perfect. So get it done and then you can perfect it later in the
Mm-hmm.
future. But if nothing is there to work with, you have nothing to improve, essentially. So it's really, the cringy, the messy, the
Mm-hmm.
ugly, get it started.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least you can say if something goes wrong, well, I'm in process. This was a learning experience, which was something I had to say a lot, like dealing
Yep.
with HR at that level, what, like I said, without any ATS, without
Mm-hmm.
any HRIS system, gets very sketchy very quickly. We're learning the laws as we go.
Erin,
And
I like that. Sorry, go ahead, Sylvia. I know we're both chomping to ask you questions. So
I know
funny.
so many golden nuggets. You just said done better than perfect, but also I love what you shared about bouncing around and doing these different things. Like you said, you know, um, I don't know, maybe I could learn that new skill, or what is that thing I could do? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a little bit of this curiosity, but also this willingness to just jump into something and then be open to what you might learn. And I think that's a really good message and such an important reminder. So many, especially if you're focused on studying one area, you want to find that right fit, and you're focused on all these other elements like culture and pay and location and so many things, right? But I'm hearing a little bit of almost a reverse from you. It's okay, here's an opportunity. Let's see what I might learn, and navigating your way. And then I love what you said about, oh, well, then you won't know about what skills you can use for the next thing until you actually have been in it,
Mm-hmm.
done it, and be open to the surprise
100%.
of that, right? That's really cool.
It's almost like a toxic positivity. I want to say, like, you have no choice but to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. Like you can't, it hasn't killed you yet, so
Mm-hmm.
you keep moving forward. And a little bit of delusion is good. A little bit of delusion is
Mm-hmm.
good. Like, you start your first day and you imagine yourself in the future. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be like the head of this department. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
do you really want
Mm-hmm.
that? You're not sure, but it's good to like kind of put that out into the world and also say it to yourself, like fake it till you believe it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just becomes a process. It's like a muscle, you just keep pushing and pushing, and eventually you look back and be like, wow, I've really done some things. I've really had some experience. And I didn't feel like that the entire time it was happening. I felt really chaotic, like, oh, I haven't had a very linear process. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks it's a straight line. Like you go to school for a certain thing, there are certain job opportunities. You go into one of those, you just keep doing that until you naturally follow the promotion line. And it's not that linear. Companies
Mm-hmm.
change budget, roles get deprioritized, departments get mushed together, and
Mm-hmm.
you could either expand your role or it could
Mm-hmm.
be reduced. And you might have to completely change what you were thinking about in that
Mm-hmm.
role. And I think that's something that I have experienced live. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really one of those situations where you just have to bear and grit and deal with it in the moment and just be like, we will figure out what's happening at the end of it. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of how it works. Like sometimes the unknown is just what you have. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
sit here and be like, it felt great the whole time. I always knew like this is how it was gonna go. And it was just like, no, you kind of just don't have any
You
choice
don't
but to go
know.
forward. Like, I don't know. I kind of like to think about like the way people think mentally when they're doing things like parkour or they're like
Mm-hmm.
rock climbing. It's just like the only way is forward or up. That's it.
So
Like
true.
your brain is still processing, but your body's already doing. So
Mm-hmm.
you have no other choice but to follow through with that.
That's so true. And I think it's really interesting, this concept of what you think versus what you're doing, and just the distinction between, like, everyone tells us like follow your passion, follow your passion. But your passion was probably right, so the beauty space and the makeup space, but it didn't align with the skills that you're developing, and the reality of it was not aligned with it. So I think it's a really interesting like repositioning of, just because you are interested in a certain space, beauty, gaming, it may or may not be the right path for you, right? So the reality is, what if we looked at this more from a skills perspective? what skills were you developing in your early career that you are most grateful for that you learned early on? And was
I
that more valuable than the industry, right? Since you've worked in so many different industries, was the skill more valuable than the industry when you started?
definitely. I think time management was one of the biggest skills I took from working in fashion and beauty because time is pretty much always running out. Like it should have been done an hour
Mhm.
ago is basically the name of the game. I've never worked in an industry faster than beauty, especially working in PR,
Wow.
because people are glued to their social media and nobody more so than
Yeah.
influencers. And that's exactly what I was working with influencer
Wow.
marketing and building those relationships, and there's no one who works faster than them. They're constantly doing things, creating things, changing things, and I had to deal with the stress of things happening that I could not see and just being prepared to deal with the results of them afterwards and just kind of having in my
Mm.
mind what that's basically how I develop what I think is one of my most important efficiency related skills, which is just like estimation of how long something takes me. So
Mm.
understanding how I can prioritize things based off of how long they take me personally to do. So, talking about like if I have to reach out to someone, understanding that if it's something where I need to respond to someone, that's quick. I can push that back in terms of in light of something more serious and would take more brain power. But if it's something that requires a response from someone or a collaboration, I'll send that out first because I don't know how long the other party is going to take. And if it's something that's going to hold me up or prevent me from proceeding with like a project or the next stage or something, definitely want to get that out first and also let them know about any time crunch. So that's definitely step one. Another
Mm.
thing is just coming to the understanding that sometimes you just have to do it the way that somebody else wants it done, even if it's wrong.
Mhm.
There are so
Mm.
many experiences I've had where it's like I know what the end result of a situation is going to be, but the person is above me and they specifically want it done in a particular way. And sometimes it's just easy to let the results speak for themselves. Sometimes
Mhm.
that is the only thing. Like gravity is a force and they are
Yeah,
the force for you. So
that is
sometimes
huge. Oh
it's
gosh, I wish people talked about that a little bit more, right?
it's truly, and in a lot of spaces, I am one of the youngest people in my
Mhm.
work environment. Tech's a little bit younger, skews a little bit younger,
Mhm.
so it's not so severe, but matter of the fact is still you might end up being the youngest person on the team. And when you're new, you have very little buy-in with the team. They can't just trust you because they have
Mhm.
no work to gauge that trust
Mhm.
on. That's a ridiculous ask. Would you just trust a stranger?
Mm,
It's not going to happen. So sometimes you just have to let people do what they want and show them that their way is not the most effective. And then you can come in and be like, I thought about this and I have an alternative solution that I think might work. How about we try that now? Now they're open to possibility because they've seen that
Mm.
what they wanted to
Because
do
they've
has
seen
failed.
it fail.
Exactly. Sometimes you can push, push, push and be like, I don't think this is the most effective. This might be like a waste of time and resources. Sometimes people just need that. And then it becomes empirical evidence on your side.
Mhm.
They've
like
made the evidence appear for you. That's going to springboard you to where you want to go.
I
That's
love
part of the
that.
strategy,
Mhm.
right? The strategy to navigating your early career. And nobody talks about this. And I think about it sometimes also like, the clarity that we need from the managers, right? Like, what's the goal, right? Like, if the goal is follow the process, then you follow the process. If they're open to like if they're open to saying like, I don't care how you get there, right? So to me, that's what I see different in like the startup culture versus corporate cultures. The corporate culture is very linear, right? Very, very, very process oriented, very bureaucratic. And to your point, right? Like you better follow the protocol because you are too young, too new, too inexperienced to challenge it, even if you're right. That's not the game. The game is not, are you right? The game is, are you following the process and procedures that your manager is implementing? Versus what I've seen in the startup is we don't care how you get there. We don't care. We're not even going to look at it. What we need is this one thing, right? Like what we need is this one thing. So have you had an experience where you were able to shift at the beginning, right? Like, were you able to communicate with the manager effectively to say, hey, what's your goal in this? Because I always found that even, today when interns come to me, I love when they say, like, what's your goal, Jen? Right? Like, do you want me to do it this way? Because managers can sometimes, we're just being helpful, right? Like, here's how it's done. Hope this is easy for you.
Exactly.
And early career workers are saying, like, this is the most inefficient thing I've ever seen, right? So how do you have like a constructive conversation, or do you just not have one at all?
I definitely think you should take notes during the process. I think
Mm-hmm.
you should know what you're about to change before you change it.
Ah.
100%. You have to understand, how do you play the game if you don't know the rules? That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. When I was working at NYU, they had, like, I literally mean that. I mean that quite literally. They had a rule book that had dust on it. Like the binder on how the office had run and how everything was managed was printed in black and white in an old dusty binder
Right.
that I had to pull out, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. We can have an Excel spreadsheet that,
Yeah.
we automatically update with
Yeah.
drop down menus and color coding. It can be so easy. It can
Yeah.
be so easy. We can have it auto populate a list of all of the things that are marked out as zero quantity. Like, we don't have to live like this. Technology exists. But you try telling somebody who's like born before like people had telephones in their homes that
Mm-hmm.
is how that should work. Let them see how easy it can be. Just be like, listen,
Yeah.
let me do one order like this.
Wow.
And then they're like, wow, we never ran out of soap this quarter. And it's like, yeah, you want to know why? Because I keep track of how much soap is in the bathrooms. And then when it hits like a certain level, like when it's down to like maybe two, we reorder, and then we never run out. It never happens.
Right.
And then,
Right. Versus the binder saying order 14 soaps, right? Like there's a working
exactly, like
system in
annually. And it's
place.
just like, that's not going to be enough. Who decided that? But you have to kind of like, there's a process. People have their own
Yeah.
perception of things. Like, I working at that level, you actually get to talk to those people. So talking to the dean in charge of finance, including the person who allocates the budget to the office. And by being like, hey, we have certain complaints. This is exactly what I mean when you have to like play the game. Log the complaints from people about the issue you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
address. Then prove to them that the previous system does not work. But you have to have this all in a document, is the thing. They're old.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it old school. Have it in a document that
Mm-hmm.
you can print it out. Be like, here is the issue at hand, is that, inefficient office management in regards to tools for the office.
Mm-hmm.
Mention the number of complaints you've received.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard. Just have some of these people be like, hey, Jeff, like, there's no soap in the bathroom. What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now we have a personal interaction. They have some stake in the game. They're like, okay, maybe this isn't working. And then you're there ever so helpfully with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, we've
I
tried it
like
the other way. It's
Mhm.
office politics. It's all office politics. The thing is,
Mm-hmm.
people like to think about it like, I'm thinking of something and then I told that to someone else. But the problem is, the baseline of communication is, if that person is not ready to receive what you just said, you might as well have not said anything.
Mhm.
You could have literally said nothing. But if you have
And
evidence that,
mm-hmm.
you tried it their way, so
Mm-hmm.
we assuage any egos. Your system isn't
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's just not what works now. But I have a
Mm-hmm.
solution to improve and edit what you did, and now we can have something that works well for everyone.
It's like key phrases, right? Like building off of what you've done, right?
Exactly. Nobody likes to be told what they have is bad. That's like their baby sometimes.
Yeah. Well, when not
And
when they've spent 60 hours and 2 Christmas breaks working on this to get it just right and have edited every period and every semicolon.
exactly. Or it's just been in place for so long. That's how we've
Yeah.
always done it. It's tradition. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
tradition is old and inefficient
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times. But you can't just say that. You can't just be like,
No.
I'm coming here and everything you do is wrong. It's like, I'm
Well,
coming
and
here.
also the difference too between the power of writing something down, right? The difference, because office chatter, the amount of people that get frustrated saying, I told them 10 times that they should do this, they should do this. But when you just say you should do this, it's like it doesn't become real, right? Like it's not
Exactly.
real until there's something documented, until it has a matching format and fonts, until it has numbers, 3 bullet points with numbers next to it that say, we've had 14, personal interviews, right? There's like these key jargon and key words that all of a sudden translates to managers to say, oh, Erin put some thought into this. She's not just complaining, right?
Exactly. It gives real weight to things. Like there was an initiative at NYU when I started, and they were just kind of like, we're trying to get the office employees to have more active lives. There was like some study the school had done, and they were like, we want to integrate this into the actual lives of people who live here and like work here. And I was like, one of the easiest ways is to get people to take the stairs. Like there's tons of stairs in this building and the elevators are slow. I can prove that they're slow. Like they add 10 minutes to like trying to get from the
Yeah,
lunchroom back
yeah,
upstairs.
yeah.
So you're
I
losing 10
raced. I
minutes.
raced my friend. Yeah, we know.
Exactly. So, you create a situation and you have a problem, and then you have a solution. So my solution was to take pictures in the stairways and just being like, these lights are too dark for people to feel comfortable trying to walk up and down the stairs in between like a floor or two. Like like this is like, murder stairs. I don't want to be in here. We need to paint edging on the steps so that, like the impaired people who work here can see very
Mm.
clearly where the edge of the step is. That's a huge concern. I know that that's like always legals, like stairs are not the first choice because people can fall down them, but it's like, all right, let's try and make them more accessible so that we can meet this goal.
Mm.
And they're very small ass. It's like some paint, new light bulbs. Boom. That's what we need.
Hmm.
So
That's such a good tip, right? But I think also nobody tells us during career preparation the significance of not just jumping to the solution, right? But how do you frame a problem for your managers to understand? And then like start there. Start with a really clear problem that you both agree on, right? Do you see
exactly.
this as a problem or is it a problem? Or you don't see this problem? Okay, never mind. See you later. Right? Like
Right?
don't just jump
This
to the
is why
solution.
the writing helps so
Yeah.
much because it's just like in your head,
Yeah.
everything sounds good, it's your
Yeah, it
own
sounds
TV
good.
show going on in
Yeah.
here all day. And it's just kind of like, should I do this? Yeah, you should do this. This was a
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
idea.
girl.
Or
Yeah,
like the
girl. Good
opposite,
one.
like you get into a negative spiral, you're like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. That's not a
Yeah.
useful idea. Just write it down. Just write it down. Nobody's gonna get mad if you just pull it up and you're like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's like a
Hmm.
fully fleshed out concept or like a draft or something. And
Yep.
they'll just be like, you're starting something. And they
Yep.
love documents
You're
are your
so
friend.
right.
Documents are your
You're
friend.
so right. Just even the like, wow, you put however much time into doing this, even before you met with me. So I know there's some credibility that you just didn't think about this over lunch. And you're like,
Exactly.
you're brainstorming with your manager. You're actually like thinking about this, and that has puts a significant weight
And
on it.
it's so easy to do. Like, everybody
Hmm.
can just pull up a document like a note-taking app or,
Hmm.
your Google Docs on your phone and just
Hmm.
that's how I made that document. I just snapped a
Yeah.
pic while I was going down the stairs for lunch.
Hmm.
Let them see what the lighting looks like because the camera
Wow.
pictures are so good. They're basically our eyes at this point. And just whip that up really quick with a document and show the picture of the stairs and was like, this would be the ideal, and took a picture like in a different building, and saw what their staircase looked like, which had also, like I said, the painted edges and everything. It's just like
Amazing.
show them what could be,
Yeah.
tell them what it
Yeah.
takes, and then have an idea of like a conclusion that includes like what
Hmm.
the hoped result will be. And that shows a person that you are somebody who's willing to enact a plan and complete it and present it to another person. And it's not going to be flawless the first time, like the first time you have to talk to a manager and you're like stuttering over yourself and being like,
Hmm.
well, I think, and it's like over time you will get better at it, but it's a muscle that you have
Hmm.
to practice. And I think that is one thing I want to say to
Hmm.
all of the young people, self-included, I'm not that old,
Hmm.
that listen to this conversation and just understand
Hmm.
sometimes what you do will be cringy. It will just
Mhm.
feel weird and awkward and uncomfortable to do, but the momentary fear and
Mhm.
shame that you feel in that moment is so minuscule in comparison to all of the
Mhm.
growth you will experience
Mhm.
from living through the thing, that you will eventually be where you want to be. But it does take that. Like, every single successful person you know
Mhm.
was told by many people how
Mhm.
weird or ineffective or nonsensical their idea or process was. And look at them now. Like, it was well worth
Mhm.
whatever weirdness they felt in the moment. They have the end result. So if you let the opinion of other people stop you from trying to
Mhm.
grow and change and acquire new skills and evolve yourself, or
Mhm.
complete independent projects that you have
Mhm.
or have been
Mhm.
thinking about, you're the only one who has to live with that regret. Like,
Mhm.
the shame is momentary. Promise you that. It
Mhm.
really is. Like,
Mhm.
it's nothing.
Well, and it's that when you're talking about this, it's the same muscle and the same practice that an entrepreneur at a huge tech startup would have, right? It's the same muscle and it's the same template. Find a problem, look around to see what the solutions are, talk to a couple people, what would make it better, experience it, right? Go through going through the steps together, go through being scared of the murder steps, and write down that part of it is these are murder steps, right? Don't overlook that, because these are all insights that inform and drive you to the solution, right? Each one of the little micro problems, eep, arrow, here's the solution to that I found. And it's the same thing that you do to build a startup. What I like about this is, and let's talk a little bit about this because you've seen this better than anyone, is we all make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes.
Definitely.
Some of it is like our own personal, I don't know where we think that there's someone that, maybe in those like perfect LinkedIn profiles that everyone just posts their highlight reel and everything seems perfect. But the reality is most of us learn from the big mistakes that we've made, right? Like I've made some bad errors, in PR, right? Like you make some of those errors once and the reporter doesn't talk to you anymore, you'll never make that that error again. What are more micro mistakes that you've seen either personally or through the younger workers that you have hired and onboarded that nobody tells you about but could save all of us a ton of time?
I would definitely say one of the biggest micro mistakes is assuming when you're new to a space. When you're new to a space, you have
Mm-hmm.
kind of like an infinite amount of questions you can ask. It's kind of
Infinite,
like
yeah.
it's kind of like, being invincible in Mario Kart. Like, you have a window of time where
Yeah.
you can just keep
Ah.
running free, because nobody's gonna get mad at you. You just started. You just started. Like, you have invincibility for a window of time. Run free with it. Like I said, the shame, the embarrassment, the fear of asking the question and sounding dumb, just run. Just run with it. Like,
Let's
especially
talk
within
about this,
your own
Erin.
team, especially within your own team, because all it shows to somebody who is more experienced than you is you're trying. And
Yeah.
seeing somebody trying is such a motivator to help. It is such a motivator to help, and it will
Ooh.
get you allies when you're trying to change things, like I said, that people are used to doing. If they have that buy-in with you, with that trust, if they
Mm-hmm.
trust that you're trying to change something, if you're doing your best, if you are, working towards a goal, and they think that you have good intentions
Mm-hmm.
and that they can be of help to you, most people will try. Most people will try and help you. And that is an invaluable thing, because those are the people who are going to be in those conversations where, after your internship, do they want to hire you? Do they want to
Mm-hmm.
bring you back for another round of internship, like in the next like quarter, and the next summer, or a situation like that? Who's going to give you a reference?
Mm-hmm.
These are the interactions you need to have. And it's a little bit scary. Like, asking people questions feels dumb
Mm-hmm.
because we
But
have the internet.
you feel so vulnerable too, right? You're like
Everything
we
has
also
instant answers now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
having to have that human interaction and being like, oh, I can't just Google this thing, like this is something that I need a real person for, can feel a bit overwhelming. But in the reality, that human connection is what is going to help you in your career. There's only so much you can use. Like ChatGPT is a tool, but it's a tool that you use to make better connections in your workplace. It's a tool that you use to make the process easier for you to get your work done. It's not going to replace your brain or, the real life experiences that you have. So one of the biggest micro mistakes is like leading into that fear and not asking enough questions, not taking advantage of your newness. It's not a detriment. It's not a detriment to you. It is a
Well,
saving
and how
grace.
a saving grace, and how as you onboard people, to me, the red flag is not when someone asks questions. To me, the red flag is when someone says, I don't have any questions. And you're like, wow, I've been training you for 2 weeks. You have had 0 questions over 2 weeks. Like either you're the world's smartest person that's reading massive amounts of information when we're not meeting together and talking to everybody except to me, or you're not being honest with me, right? Like
Exactly.
part of the process is not just answer the question. Part of the process is like building trust with your manager,
Having those conversations. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you become closer if you don't have these interactions? Also, if you
Yeah.
make a mistake for something that you could have easily asked a question for, that becomes the issue. Is like you
That
are not
becomes the
somebody
issue.
that grabs the opportunities in front of them. You're somebody who lets their ego sit in front of them and fails to accept knowledge from people who definitely know more than you. And that's part of it too. It's just like you just have to acknowledge like you're new to this space. Like I said, I've worked with people who've had careers longer than I've existed on this planet. That's humbling
Mhm.
and scary to
Mhm.
have to ask somebody who's like, you know, office is older than you about something, but also, like I said, they'll have the best advice. Advice you
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 know,
could never think of.
so true. I think take advantage, right? The tip is take advantage of those early days because you'll
Yes.
never be given as much grace as you're given in those early days to have really and the trust, right? Like the trust that comes from someone being like, hey, this may have been in the handbook and I may have missed it, but can you just tell me a little bit more about like what am I supposed to wear to the conference tomorrow? Right? Like it is embarrassing to ask, but but those little questions is wow, it feels really good as a manager to hear that somebody cares enough. They maybe we aren't as clear as we could be in the business professional description that we are, and how much initiative it takes to actually come up and say that is a really positive thing, not a negative thing.
Yes, because you're asking because you care. You care about
Because
your
you
job. You
care.
care about how you present yourself in this
Questions
space.
mean you care. I like
Yeah.
that. And then tell me about another micro mistake that you've seen someone make where you're like, wow, that was a big mistake, but nobody told you how to do that, or nobody mentioned that to you.
I definitely think the importance of a thank you and how it's presented is something that
Mm,
is really underutilized now. Everything is, via email, and it can feel a little bit isolating when you're dealing with people in person. Because in most cases, at some point, even for fully remote companies, they want to have an in-person interaction, and you need to take advantage of that. So when it comes to, when you're doing internships and things like that, at the close of your internship, I would suggest handwritten thank you notes to your team. I think that's a big
wow.
one. If you're not comfortable with that, they have like e-cards. That's also an option, and
Mm,
I think those are cute. But the only thing is like we all have worked in spaces where it's just like emails, we get a ton of them, and we get a lot of junk emails
yeah.
too. So stuff can go straight to spam. You know what can't go straight to spam? A note. So you buy yourself one of those packs of thank you notes and you just sit down.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be special for every single person. Doesn't need to be
mm-hmm,
anything crazy, but just saying like thank you. I appreciate you letting me know, how to dress for the
mm-hmm,
conference. That's definitely a skill I will take on to my next
mm-hmm.
experience. Have a great rest of your week or something like that.
You
It's
know,
so
and I never thought
simple.
of it. I never thought of it before, but it's just similar to like the documenting of the problem and the solution to the manager, right? Just the act of knowing that someone focused on you for 3 minutes builds a rapport, strengthens the bond, strengthens the relationship, and sends the message like, I care enough too, right? I care enough too, dot, dot, dot. That's good. That's really helpful information. Have you seen the younger workers, the young Gen Z Alpha, they get critiqued a lot. I personally love Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I think they're super creative, super problem solvers, super empathetic and socially conscious compared to previous generations in the workforce. What is like, I know it's kind of broad strokes, right? But what's your message to this generation that has so much to offer, but like how do they stand out? What are they missing from their perceptions in the workplace to who they actually are?
I definitely think authenticity is such a huge, important topic to people of this of these
Mm-hmm.
generations. And,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with it. I think that
Yep.
if we can all be more true to who we really are,
Mm.
it's helpful. But I also need you guys to understand you are coming into a corporate space. The company as a
Mm-hmm.
whole is usually, if it's big enough, legally identified as its own entity. So you have to understand it has its own ecosystem going on inside. You're coming into a new space as a new person and trying to be like, I don't agree with everything in my surroundings because it doesn't align with me personally. It's like you need to come up with a way to align yourself with where your space is. Like if you choose
Mm-hmm.
to work or intern at a certain company, you have to understand what that
Mm-hmm.
company's values are before you step in there. Because if you're
Good.
somebody who's, for example, very into environmentalism, are you
Mm-hmm.
going to work for Shell? I
Mm-hmm.
don't think so.
Totally.
So
Totally.
you just need to think to yourself, yes, I am an authentic being, but you are also a corporate entity once you enter the
Mm-hmm.
workforce. You have to project what you want your corporate self to be like. I almost like to think of it as a subsection of myself. There is a work
Mm.
approved Erin, and then there is a
Yeah.
personal Erin. Does that mean that either of them are not me?
Mm-hmm.
No. It just means that you are not the same person in every environment you're in. You're not the same one with grandma and you're not the same one with your friends. That's just it. Think of it like that. You would not be the same you that goes to church that goes to the club. Those are just
Woo.
entirely different subsections of who you are.